Let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. This is the worst that this team has been in the last 5 to 6 years, for sure. This is the worst situation possible because their defense is so terrible. Even if they had healthy defensive talent, I still think that their defense would be a problem. Their defensive coordinator, Coach E, in the past, he was a head coach candidate. It seems like he may be on his way out the NFL. When I look at this Panthers organization, they're in the worst situation possible because they don't have elite defensive talent outside of J.C. Horn. They are terrible defensively. They can't stop anyone. And I understand no Jadeveon Clowney, but I told you guys throughout the entire offseason, Jadeveon Clowney's not a true number one pass rusher. I don't care if he's getting double teamed. He's not a good, consistent pass rusher from week to week if he's fully healthy. And today's game against the Washington Commanders, you could have cut this game off after the first quarter. They lost this game 40-7. Last week, the Atlanta Falcons put up 38 points on their neck as well. For you guys that may not know, this team is on pace to give up the most points in NFL history. And you can take away the extra game that they added a couple of years ago as well. That is how terrible this defense is. Last season, the defense was not a major problem. They still had problems stopping the run because they were 26 in rushing defense. But majority of that is because of how bad the offense was. Bryce Young's throwing interceptions. They're putting the defense on the field even more. And I can say the same for Andy Dalton because he has not looked good in the last couple of games. Outside of the games against the Cincinnati Bengals and against the Las Vegas Raiders, he has not been a good quarterback either. And a lot of that is because Adam Thielen is out. I'll have a lot more to say about the quarterback position in the next couple minutes, but just stick with me for a second. This defense, they need a brand new philosophy. I don't think that Coach E is the biggest problem with their defense. A lot of it is talent-based, but he's not making those adjustments. And when I look at him, he's about to get screwed over. They're going to fire this man. Now, be very cautious with this move because when the Carolina Panthers fire him, and they will, he's going to go to a different team and more than likely find success because that's the Carolina Panthers way. Look at all the names that have came through this organization and walked out. Joe Brady, former offensive play caller, they fired him. He's now finding success with the Buffalo Bills. From Sam Darnold, he's now finding success with the Minnesota Vikings. Baker Mayfield is now finding success with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're treating the Carolina Panthers as a get-right organization and as a get-right team. You basically go to the Carolina Panthers. It's like an internship. You're not going to stay there long-term. You figure out a couple things about yourself. You move off. Then you find your true position in the NFL. And that sucks because we've seen talent, like I mentioned before, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Hassan Reddick, James Bradbury, and other names as well. Stephon Gilmore, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Brian Burns, all of those players were with the Carolina Panthers at a point in time. They're no longer here. They're on different teams finding success right now. And that sucks to see. Matt Rule was a terrible NFL coach. He shouldn't have been hired in the first place. You look at him with Nebraska right now. He's finding more success with Nebraska than he ever did with the Carolina Panthers, even though he is an overrated coach still at the college level. But when I look at the Panthers, it starts from the top. Now, David Tepper had his hands off. That's all I heard from Carolina Panther fans. He's hand off this season. He doesn't have his hands on it. He's leaving it to Morgan, the brand new general manager. He fired Scott Fitterer. He went out there. Things are going to be different. Are they much different? They look like they're worse off now than they ever been underneath the David Tepper administration. This is terrible. This is horrible. You have Panther season ticket holders. They're not even going and showing up to the games anymore. That's how terrible this is. They're tuning out on the franchise. We're not even at the halfway point in the season because of how bad the defense is. You no longer have that defensive talent anymore that you moved off of. So you went out there and you brought in veterans. You brought in guys like Jadeveon Clowney. Let's be honest, it's not a good pass rusher. You brought in guys like Michael Jackson. You traded Dante Jackson to the Steelers to get Deontay Johnson. You bring in guys like Nick Scott. You have Xavier Woods. This has been a problem with the Panthers over the last couple of years. You had a homegrown safety in Jeremy Chin, a very good safety from his freshman and sophomore seasons, and then he completely disappears off the depth chart. They couldn't find a place for him on the field. And he was a very good player. He goes off to the Washington Commanders. He's finding success over there. You look at the middle linebacking spot. Yes, no Shaq Thompson. Shaq Thompson got injured last season. Wasn't his fault. His dumb teammate slammed a player on his leg. He fractures his leg. This season, he tears his Achilles. His days as a Carolina Panther, they're numbered. But the middle linebacking spot has been a huge issue since Luke Kuechly retired due to concussions. You bring in Josie Jewell from the Denver Broncos. Solid player with the Broncos because he was coached up by Coach E over there. You bring him over, he can't stay healthy. And let's be real, he's not one of the best linebackers in the NFL. DJ Wonnum as well had 8 sacks last season. He hasn't played at all this season. A lot of it is due to injuries, but his lack of adjustments as well. And my biggest fear, they're gonna fire this defensive coordinator. He's gonna go somewhere else, maybe like a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's gonna find success with that team because that's the Panther way. It's always to point fingers at the coaches and never hold leadership accountable. This is on David Tepper more than it is on everyone else. And when I look at this offense, it's not good. Andy Dalton on the last couple of games, he's been turning the football over at a high rate. Now you hear whispers. Should they put Bryce Young back in the game? Might as well. Put him back in the game because I guarantee you this right now, with or even without Bryce Young, you're going to get a high first-round pick. And for the Carolina Panther fans saying, we're not going to select a quarterback with that pick, like hell you aren't. They're going to select a quarterback with that first-round pick, whether you like it or not. That's just how it is. Bryce Young's not a good quarterback either. Right now, Andy Dalton is who he is. He's a bridge starter. He was never going to be the long-term solution. Bryce Young, the first 2 games were terrible. And for the ones that still want to take up for Bryce Young, I want them to put him back in the game. Please put Bryce Young back into the game. For the Bryce Young defenders that love him so much, put him back into the game. Then you can secure the first overall pick because that's how bad he is. You're going to end up with a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. It's going to happen. Whether Carolina Panther fans want to see that way or not, there's nothing redeemable about Bryce Young. He's an undersized quarterback that has a noodle arm and has piss poor accuracy. That's just it. David Tepper has completely sucked the life out of this franchise and out of the fan base. This is terrible. At least in the past, you had a defense you could hang your hat on and say, you know what? We lost, but we lost 21-10. We didn't have a quarterback. We didn't have our offense in place. Your only consistent offensive player besides your offensive lineman is Chuba Hubbard. That's it. And yes, you have Xavier Legette, who I do believe one day can be a number 1 wide receiver. You hope that he can be a number 1 wide receiver. Him and Jalen Coker, that Jalen Coker could possibly be your number 2 wide receiver because Adam Thielen is on a 1-year deal. The same with Deontay Johnson. They're not going to stick around next season because you're stuck in this endless cycle of a rebuild. And I've been covering this team a lot over the last couple of years. They're beating the life out of me to watch this team play because every single week, you know what's going to happen. They can't stop anyone and they can't score enough points either. Dave Canales is trying to run the football as much as possible, but now teams are starting to stack the box again. And Andy Dalton is not good enough to go out there and elevate the pieces around him. Yes, he had a good moment against the Las Vegas Raiders. Shout out to him. Yes, he had a solid game against the Cincinnati Bengals. And that was a very winnable game against the Bengals. But the defense couldn't tackle. They couldn't cover either. And now teams are going out there, they're abusing Michael Jackson in coverage because they know J.C. Horn, that's the true corner we have to worry about. Xavier Woods, he's a solid safety. Everyone else in the secondary, they're easy pickings. You can go straight to them. It doesn't matter if this defense was fully healthy either. Now, they had a guy like not Brian Burns, they had a guy like Derek Brown that could come in and stop the run. Hey, you'll be okay. You'll be in a better situation than you're in right now. But they need a complete makeover. At least you had defensive pieces in the past. At least in the past, they didn't have a quarterback. You had names on the roster that you drafted with DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey. You had Burns. You still have Derek Brown on the roster, but you had him fully healthy. You had names that you could say, you know what, we have talent. We're just a quarterback away. They're more than just a quarterback away now. But the negative side of that is this. They can go out there, have a high draft pick, trade back in the NFL draft. You're going to run it back with Bryce Young? This was supposed to be the year you pushed all your chips in to see what you have on him. And you benched him after 2 games because of how terrible he was. And I will say this as well. I said this point 4 weeks ago. I'm going to say it again. Stop making it seem like David Tepper did not go out there and bring in help. Stop making it seem like Morgan, the general manager, did not go out there and help out the team because he did. They made a trade to get Deontay Johnson. They went out there. They brought in brand new offensive linemen. The offensive line has looked better underneath Andy Dalton than it did with Bryce Young. The game is too fast for him. You need to move on from Bryce Young. It's a delusion out there still with some Carolina Panther fans that want to clamor on to Bryce Young. And I hate the people that come out and say, see, it wasn't a quarterback issue. They have bigger problem than a quarterback issue. You have been watching Carolina Panther games over the last few seasons. The defense has never looked this bad. If I hear one person say, man, the defense has always been like this, it hasn't. The defense has never looked like this. A couple of years ago, their defense was bad, but it was not dead last. This team can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't stop anyone. Jaden Daniels exited today's game early with a rib injury, and I hope that he's okay. Marcus Mariota, a below-tier starter who the Panthers have beat up on in the past when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. Remember, he used to play in this division, and the Carolina Panthers defense was giving him hell, but their offense could not score enough points. The man went out there today and looked like prime Michael Vick mixed with Randall Cunningham. That is ridiculous for a backup to come in and do that to your defense. And I look at it from this situation as well. These players just don't care anymore. They don't even try to go gang tackle. When it's 1 or 2 people at the ball, the rest of the defenders, they just wave it off and give up. That's low effort. That's on the players. That's not on coaching. And I look at young players like Trayvon Wallace. He's giving it his all as a rookie. He's trying. A'Shawn Robinson, yes, he missed today's game. But you got guys like TJ Smith, they're out there trying. Charles Harris, they're trying as well. It's a lot of players on this defense. They're making business decisions. I don't know why. Because when other GMs and scouts, when they look at this film, no one's going to pick them up. Most of these defenders would be lucky to be in the XFL. That is how bad they have been this season. And I feel bad for Carolina Panther fans because this was supposed to be different. This was supposed to be a different season with the names they brought in, with a young quarterback, all this excitement. The excitement was thrown out the window as soon as Bryce Young threw his first pass. And his first pass was a completion to the New Orleans Saints. I don't know how long this team can be this bad. Because you look at the division, you think the New Orleans Saints are in a bad situation. You haven't seen anything yet with the Carolina Panthers. The positive side is this. They're going to have a lot of cap space. You're not paying a quarterback a lot of money. Deontay Johnson is an expiring contract. The same with Adam Thielen. So you can bring in some more defensive help. You can go out there and bring those guys in. Another positive spot is this. You have Chuba Hubbard. You also will have your running back coming in as well that you drafted in this year's draft class, and Jonathan Brooks. He's supposed to come back and play any day now, any week. Hopefully he could come in and he can give you that ability that you saw at Texas that you fell in love with before he tore his ACL. You have Sanders at the tight end spot. He's been very good as well over the last couple of weeks. Xavier Legette, like I mentioned before, first round pick for a reason. He could be a very good wide receiver. I don't see Dave Canales getting fired after this season. Look at all the coaches you just had. You fired Frank Reich at the halfway point in the season last season. That didn't work out. The Carolina Panthers made a terrible mistake when they did not go out there and bring back Steve Wilks. They should have ran it back with Steve Wilks. And I understand his stint with the San Francisco 49ers did not end well when he was their defensive coordinators, but the players, they believed in that man, and they had something special on the back half of that season. That was the best that the Carolina Panthers have looked underneath David Tepper, is when Steve Wilks was the interim head coach. They should have brought him back, but they didn't. And we all know why he didn't. He wanted to go out there. He wanted to bring in Frank Reich and bring in this all-star coaching staff, which never worked out. The all-star coaching staff was so good, most of those coaches don't even have a job in the NFL anymore. It's year after year after year of abuse, of just seeing this team getting pummeled into the ground every single season. I just wish the Carolina Panthers were at least competitive on a week-to-week basis. They went out there, they had a strong outing against the Raiders. They had a solid outing against the Bengals, and since then, everything has went to hell. Maybe they go back to Bryce Young. Maybe he does look better, but I would not hold my breath. Usually when quarterbacks are that bad early in their career, they don't get better. Look at Zach Wilson. Look at Ryan Leaf. These teams that try to, quote unquote, we're going to go for a reset. What are you resetting? They are what they are. And the film is out there now. You're not going to get a lot of value for a guy like Bryce Young. They have made terrible mistake after terrible mistake. Dumb trade after dumb trade is starting to eat up to his team. And Scott Fitterer, he's no longer in the building, thankfully. But this man put this team behind the 8-ball. They traded Burns to the New York Giants for a 2nd and 5th round pick when the Los Angeles Rams offered them 2 first-round picks. They offered them 2, and that dumb Scott Fitterer said no. He said, I'm not going to take it. That is what he said. I'm not going to take the picks. We're going to hang on to a guy that we possibly won't even extend in the future. Then to later on to go out there and trade him for a second and fifth round pick. And by the way, a different general manager. Scott Fitterer did not end up trading him because they fired him. Then they went out there and they made the move to go select Bryce Young, an undersized quarterback from Alabama, over CJ. That may be the biggest mistake in franchise history. But we've seen dumb move after dumb move. David Tepper came in, snatched away Ron Rivera. You're out of here. Cam Newton, you're out of here too. He wanted to bring in his own guys. As a businessman, David Tepper is elite when it comes to moving off a certain stock and going out there and moving money around. I will never come on this channel and say that he's a dummy with his money, because he's not. He's one of the smartest people in the world when it comes to investments. But as far as running a football team, he may be the worst owner in the NFL with Dan Snyder out. Throwing drinks on fans. I'm surprised he hasn't thrown a drink on a fan this season. And if you don't believe that they're not going to select a quarterback in the first round, he is one of the most impatient businessmen in America. That's what he's known for being impatient, moving off of one stock and moving on to the other, moving off of one investment, moving on to the other. You can do that in the stock world, but in the NFL, that's not how this thing works. The biggest mistake that this franchise has ever made was trading DJ Moore, those first round picks, to the Chicago Bears and drafting a quarterback in Bryce Young. That was their biggest mistake. And David Tepper has completely killed this franchise. And do you know how embarrassing it is to go against Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, and they come out immediately and they use DJ Moore against you? He gets 2 receiving touchdowns immediately. They traded Christian McCaffrey for nothing. This organization has become a joke, and I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about the owner. He's turned this organization into a complete joke. You look at what the Carolina Panthers were in 2015 under that previous ownership. They were dominant with Cam Newton. They were dominant with Thomas Davis. They were dominant with Luke Kuechly, even Devin Funchess. And Devin Funchess was never a top receiver in the NFL, but at least he gave it his all. You also had Kelvin Benjamin as well, Jonathan Stewart. You had those players on the field. You had something to look forward to. Now you have nothing to look forward to besides seeing this team get their teeth kicked in every single year. I hope that this NFL draft is different. I hope that this offseason is different. But it's hard for me to come on this channel, and it's hard for me to listen to anyone else and say, you know what, this is the year. Because this season was supposed to be the season. They brought in all the pieces. They had a young quarterback from scratch. They drafted a guy in the first round. Remember, in the past, they'll roll the dice on the quarterback. They'll go with a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. They'll go with Baker Mayfield. They will go with Sam Darnold. They'll bring those guys in, use quarterbacks. So they went out there, they brought in their own quarterback, and it didn't work out. And it seems like they're about to do that again. Hopefully a guy like Cam Ward can come in and he can fix this mess. At least you have an offensive line that you know that can go out there and ball. But Taylor Moton, he is getting older at the right tackle position, and he missed today's game dealing with an injury. I just don't know where the Carolina Panthers go from here besides selecting a quarterback and bringing in defensive help in free agency. Maybe you go out there and get a veteran, and that's my one thing with Dave Canales as well. I like Dave Canales a lot as a coach. He's a first-year head coach. I'm going to say this. He's starting to get exposed a lot. The talent is not there, but he hasn't been known as a coach to go out there and to develop quarterbacks. He is known to go out there and help out quarterbacks that are already late into their career. Look at what he did with Baker Mayfield. Look at what he did with Russell Wilson. They were already established in the NFL, but they were going through some struggles. Now, Russell Wilson never went through struggles with the Seattle Seahawks, but he definitely helped him out with the Seahawks when he was a coach there. He comes over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as an offensive coordinator. Baker Mayfield was a guy that was in Cleveland, had success in college. Veteran quarterback, turns it around. We've never seen him go out there and develop a rookie quarterback, and that does concern me. Hopefully he can do that and let him pick his quarterback. Bryce Young is not his guy. He was paid to say that. Let's just be real. David Tepper brought him in. He was like, you know what? We have Bryce Young here. Can you fix him? And David Tepper's like, okay, there's something there with this kid. If they had full confidence in Bryce Young, they wouldn't have benched him after 2 games. So I'm going to leave it at that point right there. I don't want to make this video any longer than it already is. I just wanted to vent out my frustration with the Carolina Panthers because going forward for the rest of the season, I might not cover this team as much. I'm just going to be honest. I can't continue to go out there and watch this team get beat on repeatedly by the opposing team. It's like watching a college team go against the pros. You know, you may have that one friend that says, hey, the Crimson Tide can go out there and beat this NFL team, which is asinine because NFL talent is always better than college talent. But this team, they don't even look like a college team most weeks. They look like they're a peewee football team, especially on the defensive end. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Carolina Panthers moving forward and what should they do? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.